So I'm Gemma from Film Ireland, and it's lovely to meet you, Tim, and nice to see you again. And how are you getting on?
Yeah, lovely. Very good. Very
Hey,
good.
thanks for having us.
Oh, great. Well, it's such a really powerful story. I think there's something so earthy and painful that you can't. It's so visceral and weighty when you watch it. It's very intense and beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you so
Yeah,
Thank
much.
you.
isn't that it? Like no one's like, oh, I didn't really feel much by it, but it's so there's so much to kind of capture in it. Can you talk to me first about how you guys both got involved?
I think you're right about that. There is so much to sort of capture. About how I got involved sort of straight away is that Cillian sent this sort of book to me, and when I was sort of reading it, and I was a fan of Claire Keegan's, and but it's that it's so sparse, and it there's and she but the things that she sort of writes about, it gives us space to think about it and to feel about it, and she's like the master of tone and atmosphere, and I think she got 1985 small town Ireland just so correct. And I was sort of like, I thought, oh my god, that's our thing, we just need to get it, we need to sort of lean into this world and get it sort of correct and get the tonality of that right, but also the sort of the quiet sort of like constant sort of claustrophobia of it, but do it in this sort of very, very, very sparse way. So it's really hard to do that in writing on the page, and she masters it. It's tricky. It's really tricky to do in film because film is so kinetic. There's so many sort of different sort of elements within it, and yet you did it brilliantly. It was so brilliant.
Yeah, thank you.
I,
Yeah, I think I like the book, like the writing. It's so it's quiet and it's so simple, and that's what I attempted to do. Is like be a quiet observer and embrace the minimalism.
and in terms of working together, who was there with the story beforehand? Who came on later, and what was the creative process like?
we, we were talking about it. We think that sort of Killian was sort of propositioning both of us at the same time. So I think Yvonne, maybe it was Yvonne who sort of, because I know she has a connection with Claire Keegan. So before it was even sort of published, there was a manuscript going about, and Cillian wanted to work with you, and he wanted to work with me, and then he sort of like just placed those sort of things together. It's sort of, but I think it happened really, really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And in terms of collaborating on adapting a story like this, because again, like something that's so internal, there's a lot of moving parts, and everyone has sort of their own vision. What was your process like in terms of getting the scripts? Was it like would you have one finished and then send it off, or is it very much so like a big conversation before you do each pass?
I think the script was there and very close to the book and get the DNA of the book. So I got a reason why I wanted to tell it, because I get like the same kind of trauma experience as a younger boy. So that's the reason why I wanted to do it. And the structure was there. It was all perfect. It was more like me starting to visualize it, have a visual concept, because I'm kind of a groupie boy of Enda and Cillian, what they done in theater. I love it. So I was like, oh, working with these two people is amazing. It was more me coming with all my storyboards and ideas and visions to the two of them. And I think still treasure these moments of the three of us sitting in a room, and then you did maybe a little bit of tweaking upon my ideas, and then it was just a wonderful experience.
Yeah, there wasn't any sort of like in a book like that, in a story like that, there was never any sort of notion ever of like, does it need anything else? Does it need it? Was like, does it need more story? La la la. It was literally just about sort of like leaning into the sort of the pace of it and the world of it, and trusting that actually sort of like it would unravel in the same way that it does in the book, where you feel incrementally sort of anxious for this man.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, and the drama sort of like arrives at you and comes to you, not in any sort of histrionic sort of filmic way, this sort of showy way, but in a way that it's sort of like, that I think is sort of more psychologically sort of true, but also sort of like true to the pace of what life is and was in New Ross in 1985 over those evenings.
Yeah, I think my starting point would be like what's the unconscious? What is happening unconsciously with this main character, and how can I make that cinematic? Like the confidant, for example, is for me not real. For me, that's in his head. That's why it's slightly bigger than life. And how can I structure that and make it more and more dramatic? And there might be a couple of times when I get a certain shot in my head. I explained it to Enda, and he said like,
yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay, let's put it in there.
Yeah.
Because it's so, one of the things you just said is so true, that there's truth to it. And I think like it's so true from being in this society, that you have that inherent guilt of like, why couldn't we have done more? What could we have possibly done? And then I think it goes through to the generations, because I mean 1996, the last one closed, that's I was alive, like everyone was around. And I think it just captures that, and the washing of the hands and the metaphor of it, like it's so, like the weight of it is
I think as Irish people, it's going to hit us between the eyes, that sort of sense of it, and we know what the history is. But I do think sort of internationally too is that people understand sort of there are times in your life when you need to sort of call out something, where you need to sort of say it's wrong. It's sort of like, and I think it's certainly, there's that in the story, that sense of like, of just trying to sort of, for his own sake, I think, just trying to say, I'm not down with this. This just feels really, really terrible.
And the guilt of surviving too, when so much is happening. And actually there's a lot of themes in that presumably would resonate quite strongly in Germany, and this premiered at Berlin. Can you tell me, what was your impression of the reception there?
Yeah, I remember the premiere because like a lot of people from the AfD, like the right wing, were not invited. So you feel like a lot of tension. Yeah, we're uninvited, because you can tell there was a lot of tension there. There's an analogy with autocracies, of course. So it was very sensitive. It was very sensitive, but we get good reception though.
Yeah.
And in terms of like Tim, you had mentioned in another interview, sort of bringing your own pain to this. How important is having a connection to creating work like this? And actually for both of you, because the writing is very important.
For me, it's crucial, because for me, it's crucial because I think when you put a lens on an actor, you can read his thoughts, and I have to understand his thoughts. And I think for me, it might not be the case for Enda, but for me, it was all about coping with his grief and not being able to share his feelings. What I learned from like a lot of men in Ireland in the 50s were dealing with, like not being able to share your trauma with anyone. And that's also in the story. So there's like a bursting volcano inside of him, in a man who's very difficult, who get problems with sharing his feelings or coping with his feelings. I think that mixture of all these things made it really interesting for me.
And very interesting for the viewers too. It's such a powerful watch. But thank you so much, and can't wait to see it on the big cinema.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks so much. Bye bye.
Girls.
Hi, Dad.
Come on now, finish up your toast before it gets cold.
I will live in the past, the present, and the future. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach.
You'd want to watch what you'd say about what's there. People can make things difficult for you.
Don't you ever question it?
Lord is compassion and love, slow to anger and rich in mercy. No, don't be thinking you're in any trouble.